At the urging of some friends who were curious about the rockers on a E9, or in this case this car, an E120, which is a 2000C or CS, I was urged to make a video on my progress on explaining the rockers and replacing them. So I said, what the heck? And so that's what it is. We've got outer rocker, metal inner, but I'll talk all about it. Okay, first thing to do to get to the rocker is, now that it's on the rotisserie, rotate it up and we'll lock it in place. The 2000 CS, or the E120, 2000C in this case, has this stainless steel rocker trim, and it's 3 pieces, and it's secured by a series of sheet metal screws that hold it in place. There's probably about 20 sheet metal screws, and in this case I had to actually use a cutoff tool to cut the rusted screws free enough without damaging the stainless steel. When I first got the car, I'm thinking, oh, the rocker's probably okay, but when you remove that trim, which is 3 pieces, got the top piece up here, middle piece, and lower piece. No surprises await when you remove it. Some sort of joke with the E120s and the E9s that the decorative rocker trim actually kind of keeps the rocker together with all its rust. So let's find out. Got the top piece right here. Comes off. There's 5 screws. Then you've got the middle piece, which is also attached to the lower piece. And actually, like I said, I had to use a cutoff tool to cut most of the screw heads out because they were just so corroded, without damaging the stainless steel trim, which is very hard to find. Luckily, this is in pretty good condition, all things considered. Said 2 pieces screwed together. Some of the screws stayed in, but these come apart. So let's take a look at that rocker. Alright, the decorative stainless trim is removed. Let the fun begin. I'd actually removed the trim before, I put it back on just as a sort of a demonstration of what it looks like. When I did that, I was taking off this area up in here. Just gobs of rust fell out on the floor. I knew I was in trouble. When I first got this car, I was very hopeful that the rockers were okay. I use 2 types of spot weld drill bits. Got this kind right here, and then I went ahead and bought a different type also. It's these guys right here. These don't make as big a hole, whereas this one makes a, you know, a 3/8 hole, which actually is good in some ways because that's what you're going to weld back to. Alright, I went ahead and cut away the lower portion of the rear quarter and went ahead and drilled out those rivets, or not rivets, but spot welds, and blocked it right there. Blocked it up front there, but not enough to bend or warp the panel. And now I can see my outer rocker that was hidden underneath the rear quarter. So the outer rocker is this whole thing right here, except where it's hidden underneath the front fender. But interestingly, there's a drain tube right here, and so water is intended to come down here, and here's actually a sort of a drain saddle, and the water is intended to come down, and also right here is a drain port on the outer rocker, which is intended to drain out water that gets inside the outer rocker and is in there with the middle rocker. It's the craziest design I've ever seen. Right here is what's left of the rear quarter, and right there, see this right here, that ugly piece of metal was actually a piece that was crushed shut. It was crushed shut over the drain port for the inside of the rocker. So water comes down, and because this is so tightly pressed against the outer rocker, water just sits in there. As you can see, we've got rust, and it just sort of sits there. And with the drain port crushed shut, water sits inside here too. So it is the weirdest design. That's why they say these cars, these E9s and E120s, they rust out from the inside out. So what's next? Well, next I have to actually remove the outer rocker. I'll start at the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right along the shelf here, and I'm going to keep the upper portion up here of the outer rocker because I'm going to tie into it with my new one. Right, so just on outside of the little clamps for the internal wiring is where I'm going to cut. We'll have to grind out welds there, and we've got more spot welds back here. And so that is my next move. Start removing that outer rocker. Okay, I have demoed the passenger side rocker and freed up the rear quarter panel. You see all the what's left of that rocker and all the rust fell out. And also cleared the front fender away. I'll show you what we've got. Oh my God. The worst part is right here. This right here, that's supposed to be the A-pillar. The A-pillar is going to come down and tie into the middle rocker, but you can see the middle rocker is completely gone right there too. So I'm going to have to order a new A-pillar as well as the outer rocker for this car. And actually the inside rocker is gone right here. See? Oh, peekaboo. I'm going to have to fabricate that, and I actually have over there a section of viable inside rocker from a car that was cut up. All that right there is shot. Some of the middle rocker is viable there, but the base looks bad. This is the B-pillar right here. And after I sandblast it, I'll have a better idea of the metal. I think it's salvageable. There is a hole with the B-pillar right here. The back of the middle rocker doesn't look terrible. Luckily the fenders and the rear quarter weren't rusted out too bad on this one. But this is the worst rust right here I've ever been faced with, coming in from the inside. Alright, media blasting is done. I can see what I've got. And I have a better idea of how I'm going to be able to tackle a lot of different areas of rust and different parts of the metal. Most importantly, I wound up buying salvaged metal from a parts car. My friend Chris sold me a pair of nice E9 doors, and he said, well, why don't you buy these components? And at first I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'm glad I did, because one of them includes the middle rocker. Okay, time to cut the base of the B-pillar away. I've marked it, and I'm trying to find my spot welds. Base is a little rusted down there, so alright, look at there. The bottom of the B-pillar is removed, and you can see how rusted it got up in there. And here's the B-pillar itself right here. Well, it's really rusted out. Alright, I ordered all the sheet metal I'll need for the car. from Wallisch and Nesch from Germany. So the tall piece is the front floor pan for the passenger side. Those are the two rear floor pans. That's a B pillar. And this is my A pillar right here. They also sent me a parts book right here, which is going to be very useful. And a pen. How cool is that? So what do we got here? I have taken a lot of time to sort of figure out where I need to cut the old A pillar away. Kind of see my lines right there. Now I'm having to do this in part to see where my welding torch, I'll get my welding torch here, where I can, you know, where's the welding torch? Right there, boom. Where I can see if I can fit it in these tight spots, you know. So it's, this is really the trickiest thing I've ever done. So it's both, can I get a cutoff tool in these tight spots, cut above all the rust lines, and also get the welding torch in there. And I went ahead and I've marked my A pillar where I'm going to cut it. Yeah, I really hate cutting it apart, but the lower piece, of course, I'll tie into the existing good parts of the A pillar. I need to cut the A pillar away now and set it aside so I can open up this space in here to get to the middle rocker and cut away the rusted areas. Like you can see up in there, I can sort of tie in right above that rust line to some good metal. Then I'll go ahead and cut out the bad sections of the middle rocker, and then I'll when I get all that moved out of the way, then I can get to the inside rocker and replace it. So what we have here, kneel down before you, is this is the middle rocker. It is repurposed. Actually, I'm really lucky I got this one. Cleaning it up nicely. Now this again is the A pillar right here. And you can see where it fits, and you can see the remnants of the old A pillar right here. It goes like that. And see how integral it is, how they sort of, how the middle rocker impacts the structural stability of the car. So it is the backbone of the structural integrity of these cars. In the back here, we've got the B pillar, and it goes right there. All right, so step for the camera. Middle rocker. Or I'm sorry. So it's my B pillar base. I've already sandblasted it. What the other one looked like. See that? Hey. Oh. Now the A pillar. I would show you the example of what the other one looked like, but it didn't exist. There's my rocker replacement. Once again, you can really see how bad it is, so I will again use my replacement to trace out a very precise line on this existing one along the way there. So it's going to come up high, drop down, and it'll cut out the rust. But what I'm trying to drive home is you initially get the idea of the areas you want to remove on the existing one here. Then you mark it off on your replacement piece that you're going to cut. Once you get your replacement piece cut, it fits very tightly over the existing. Then you trace out your lines on the existing so you get those exact cuts. So when you go to weld, you have a perfect mating between your original metal and your new metal. Okay, I have cut the replacement piece for the rocker. What a bitch to fit, I'll tell you. Oh. So that's done. And actually, you can see it's going to come out. Nope. It magically pops right out. Yay! And this is what we have. That's the air rocker, and you can see I've got it marked. So I'm going to go ahead and I have my cutout piece right here. So okay, so I have cut out the old section of air rocker, which looks like that. Yeah. And I will go ahead and weld my new section in. So that's the end of the demoing of all the rocker pieces. And now I can go to the next phase, which is replacing all the parts. Phase 2. Finally going to fabricate new metal into the rocker, starting with the inner rocker. If you look closely at this one, I've got these little magnets right here. You can buy them from Eastwood. They're really powerful little magnets. They really come in handy. And it helps get the seam and everything perfectly straight. The welds are done, and I checked on the other side to make sure I got penetration, which I did. So what I've done here is I've taken some tape, the painter's tape, which doesn't leave residue, and I've taped where I'm going to weld, not only on the outside but most importantly up underneath on the inside, because when I weld I want to get penetration all the way through. So I need a area of clean metal. The reason why I've taped is I'm going to spray a Zero Rust, which is like pore 15. That's right there. And what Zero Rust does is it actually bonds to and seals the rust. It's a product that's been proven in a marine environment with extensive testing. So I've removed all the loose rust. There's no scale. There might be some surface rust. I'll get the rest of that away. But I'm going to go ahead and treat all of these upper chambers and inner areas before I put the middle rocker back in. So a couple of coats of Zero Rust, and it's just going to completely seal with a very permanent rust-proof coating. I've gone ahead and applied my Zero Rust on the inside of the new rocker piece, as well as recesses on the existing inner rocker, or I'm sorry, middle rocker. So now I will weld. Alright, welding is done. And you can't really see there, but there you go. Made sure I got good penetration. I could actually reach my finger behind where the weld was, and it is done. A little bit of warpage pulling this section out a little bit. I'll have to push that in. Of course, I'll sort of compare it against the outer, make sure it fits up. So what I've done now is I've applied zero rust to my A and B pillar supports on the inside. See, again, I taped the edges, so I peel that tape off. I have a clean piece of metal to weld to. I've got the holes drilled in the pillar bases for roseate welds, and I've also put a couple of coats of zero rust in there, but if you look closely, I saved my welding line so I get a good penetration, because as you know, welding can't weld through paint. And I've done the same thing inside the pillar bases as well. So the next stage, pull that tape off, set the pillar bases in place, and weld. Welding is done. Start here with the A pillar base, and of course the rocker itself. See down there. Tried to grind my welds as much as I can. Outer rocker. Okay. I broke down and ordered the passenger side outer rocker from Germany because there was just too many complications in trying to fabricate the driver's side to the passenger side. You know, mainly, you know, these where jacks, where the jack points are. Now this is going to have to be cut to fit or tie into the existing. When I say the existing, right here, this lip, this is all the original outer rocker. So I'm going to weld to this line here, which means I'm going to need to cut this top section down like so it'll fit. And then down here, like I mentioned earlier, this whole area here, the rocker that's on the car, the outer rocker, the original outer rocker is still there. This part's still there. So I'm going to cut right on this one right here. I'm going to overlap this onto the original up in there. I guess you can't see it too well, but right up in there, right there. That's right there. So that's my next phase. The outer rocker, I've drilled the holes for the roseate welds, and made sure that I ground out the paint around the holes as well as in the holes. So that, let me take a look here closely, is I went ahead and I put 3 coats of zero rust in on the inside of the inner rocker, and I put 3 coats of Zero Rust on the middle rocker and the pillars. Epic welding is done. 90 rosette welds. Count them, 90. God almighty. But I'll tell you something. For me at least, if I can see the tip of that MIG welder wire into the hole, I can work it around with good heat and I can get that good weld. Partly because I have that LED shop light, which really brightens it up. And my welding helmet right there, I've got a bifocal insert because I'm old. Anyway, like I said, this is where it joins up the top. Back in there, you can spot them in there. Where's, oh, there. Not the prettiest welds in there, but because I had to reach the welding torch from inside and come down, because I just couldn't fit it up in there very well. But all in all, you know, I thought it turned out good. So now I'm going to grind all these welds down and then put the rear quarter back in. Rockers are done. And the rear quarter has been put back in place. I welded it back in place. I got my welds there. If you notice, actually see, I got the welds in here done nicely. Got those ground, and I've got the welds back here done. I just have to grind those down. I did not put the rest of the rear quarter back in because of the drain port right there. When water comes from the window down, I want it to pour out. I don't want it to seep into that tight pressed sheet metal area between the outer rocker and the rear quarter. That was a suggestion by a pro, Tom Baruch, who has restored a lot of E9s. And he suggested why replicate that problem where rust develops right there. So, and I did put this piece back here on, I found, because when I go to put the stainless trim back on, which will conceal all of this, on the very end, if you don't fabricate a little extension of sorts, then there's sort of a, it looks unfinished down there. So I put that piece on just to make it look whole. But in any event, that is it. Rockers are done. Thanks a lot for watching my video. I hope it was helpful, and good luck in your projects.